I want to show you something that is going to make a lot of Silverado owners nervous about what is sitting in their oil pan right now. 2 years ago, I took two identical 2021 Silverado 1500 pickups with the 5.3-liter Ecotec 3 V8, same trim, same mileage, same customer usage pattern, and I ran one on the factory spec 0W-20 and the other on 5W-30 for 100,000 miles. Same driving conditions, same towing loads, same oil change intervals. I wanted to settle an argument I hear in my shop every single week. Does that thin factory oil actually protect a V8 under real truck use, or is it just there to help GM hit a fuel economy number on paper? I pulled both engines apart at 100,000 miles, and what I found inside was not close. Let's get into it. Here is how this test actually started. A contractor came into my shop 3 years ago with a 2019 Silverado that had the 5.3 in it, and he asked me point blank why his owner's manual called for 0W-20 when his buddy's older 2016 with the same displacement engine called for 5W-30. He assumed I was going to tell him it didn't matter. I didn't tell him that because it does matter, and the reason is buried in a compression ratio change and a piston design update most Silverado owners have never heard of. GM revised the Ecotec 3 5.3 starting around the 2019 model year with a higher compression ratio, updated piston skirts, and tighter bearing clearances specifically engineered around a thinner oil film. That is not a marketing decision. That is a mechanical decision that changes how the entire lubrication system behaves. The old 5.3 from 2014 through 2018 was designed around 5W-30 with looser clearances and a thicker sustained oil film. The new architecture was designed from day one around 0W-20 flowing faster on cold start and clearing tighter tolerances that a heavier oil physically cannot squeeze into as quickly. So I set out to prove which one actually protects the engine better once you factor in real towing, real Texas summer heat, and real 100,000-mile wear. Both trucks in my test were 2021 Silverado 1500 LT models with the 5.3-liter Ecotec 3, both with the 8-speed automatic, both four-wheel drive, both driven by the same rotating pool of customers who use my loaner trucks for job site runs, which meant real payload, real trailer pulls, and real stop-and-go city driving mixed with highway miles. Truck A ran factory spec 0W-20 Dexos 1 Generation 2, changed every 7,500 miles per the oil life monitor. Truck B ran 5W-30, also Dexos 1 Generation 2 approved, changed on the same interval. I pulled oil samples for lab analysis at every single change on both trucks and sent them out for spectral analysis to track wear metal content, specifically iron, aluminum, and copper, which tell you what is actually grinding away inside that engine long before you ever hear a noise or see a warning light. For the first 40,000 miles, the numbers were almost identical. Both trucks showed normal break-in wear trending down as expected. Iron levels in the 12 to 15 parts per million range at each interval, which is completely healthy for a V8 this size. This is where a lot of people would have stopped the test and declared it a wash. I did not stop because the real difference in oil viscosity does not show up in mild use. It shows up under sustained heat and load, which is exactly when a truck engine is working hardest and exactly when most owners never check anything until something fails. Starting around 55,000 miles in, once summer towing season hit, and both trucks were regularly pulling loaded trailers in heat above 95 degrees, the oil analysis started to diverge. Truck A on 0W-20 showed iron wear climbing to 19 parts per million during the heaviest towing months, then settling back down once temperatures dropped. Truck B on 5W-30 stayed remarkably flat through the same towing season, holding in that 13 to 15 range the entire summer. That told me the thicker film was doing exactly what thicker oil is supposed to do under sustained thermal load and higher bearing pressure, maintaining a more consistent protective barrier when the engine was working its hardest. But here's the part that surprised me and the part most people online get wrong. Truck A's wear numbers on 0W-20 never became dangerous. They elevated during heavy load, then normalized. That is not an engine falling apart. That is an oil formulation reaching the edge of its comfort zone under conditions it was not primarily optimized for and still holding the line. At 100,000 miles, I pulled both engines down completely. Bearings, cylinder walls, cam lobes, everything measured and documented. Truck B on 5W-30 showed marginally better bearing clearances, measuring right at the tight end of factory spec with almost no measurable wear beyond what a brand new bearing set would show. Truck A on 0W-20 showed bearing clearances that had opened up slightly more, still well within GM's acceptable service limits, but measurably more than Truck B cylinder wall crosshatch pattern was nearly identical on both engines, which makes sense because that is more a function of ring design and cylinder coating than oil viscosity at this mileage range. Cam lobes on both engines showed no abnormal wear whatsoever. The one place I expected to see a real difference and did not was oil consumption. Both trucks used roughly the same amount of oil between changes throughout the entire test, which tells me GM's tolerances are tight enough that viscosity alone is not driving consumption in this engine family the way it does in some other modern V8s. If you are only measuring peak load protection and long-term bearing clearance, the data from my shop says 5W-30 wins this test in a Silverado that sees regular towing, especially in hot climates and especially for owners who load these trucks up the way they were designed to be used. But before you run out and dump 0W-20 for 5W-30 in your own truck, you need to hear the other half of this because it is not that simple, and anybody telling you it is simple is selling you something. If you are getting something out of this breakdown, hit subscribe because I am running these same kinds of real-world teardown comparisons on other trucks in my shop, and I would rather show you data from an actual engine than repeat a forum opinion. Now let me finish explaining what this test actually means for your truck. The fuel economy difference between the two trucks over 100,000 miles was real, and it was not small. Truck A on 0W-20 averaged right around 0.6 of a mile per gallon, better than Truck B across identical routes and identical drivers. That does not sound dramatic until you run the math over the life of a truck. At current fuel prices and average annual mileage for a work truck, that gap adds up to real money every single year, money that partially offsets any small increase in long-term wear. GM did not pick 0W-20 out of thin air. They engineered this specific Ecotech 3 architecture around it, validated it through millions of durability test miles in their own labs, and backed it with the factory warranty on every single 2019 and newer 5.3 that leaves the factory. The bearing clearance difference I measured in my teardown was real, but it was also well inside GM's acceptable wear limits at 100,000 miles on both engines. Neither truck was anywhere close to a failure. What I actually proved is that 5W-30 gives you a slightly larger margin of protection under sustained heavy towing and extreme heat, and 0W-20 gives you better fuel economy and faster cold start oil pressure with a margin that is still entirely within GM's design tolerances. Here is my actual recommendation after running this test and pulling both of those engines apart with my own hands. If your Silverado is a daily driver, a commuter truck, or sees occasional light towing, stick with the factory 0W-20. It is what the engine was engineered around. It protects that tighter bearing clearance on cold starts better than a heavier oil can, and the fuel economy gain is real money in your pocket every year. But if you are running this truck the way a lot of of my customers do, meaning regular trailer pulls, sustained highway towing in hot weather, heavy payload work, I am comfortable recommending a switch to 5W-30, specifically a Dexos one, Gen 2 approved 5W-30, so you stay within GM's additive package requirements and do not void anything. That small increase in film thickness gave Truck B a real, measurable advantage during the exact conditions that put the most stress on a truck engine, and the fuel economy penalty for making that switch is small enough that most towing-heavy owners will not even notice it at the pump. One more thing worth mentioning from the Teardown that matters for every Silverado owner, regardless of which oil you run. Both engines had spotless timing chains and zero evidence of the kind of bearing distress that has shown up in some other GMV8 applications in recent years. This Ecotec 3 5.3, when maintained on the correct interval with a Dexos 1 Gen 2 approved oil in either viscosity, is a genuinely durable engine. The viscosity debate matters at the margins, not because one choice destroys the engine and the other saves it. Change your oil on time, use a Dexos 1 Gen 2 approved product in whichever viscosity matches how you actually use your truck, and this engine will comfortably see 200,000 miles or more. So that is the real answer after 100,000 real miles and 2 engines on my own bench. Factory 0W-20 for daily drivers and light-duty owners chasing fuel economy. A Dexos 1 Gen 2 approved 5W-30 for the tow-heavy, payload-heavy trucks working for a living. Both are correct depending on what you actually do with your truck, and anybody telling you there is only one right answer has not pulled an engine apart to check. If you want to see the full teardown photos and the complete oil analysis lab reports from both trucks, I put the whole gallery in a companion video linked right here. 23 years of pulling wrenches, and I still learn something new every time I take an engine apart instead of just guessing. Like this video if it helped you make sense of your own oil choice. Subscribe for more real teardown data instead of forum opinions, and I will see you in the next one. Drive safe. Take care of your truck, and it will take care of you.